Hi everyone, we'll be starting now. Good morning. My name is Mihira and I'm from the Digital Marketing Department and I'm representing VMS today. We are a student-led organization which is aimed at helping med students get into their dream universities. Today we bring VMS's sixth webinar of the year, which is hosted by Joanne Joshua, who is a third-year medical student at the University of Nottingham. This webinar is about how to choose which medical school to apply to. Now, coming back to VMS, I just want to point out some things that we offer as an organization. We have monthly newsletter, which has medical ethics info, university info, and exclusive doctor interviews. We offer webinars as you are in one today. We offer virtual doctor shadowing programs. We have also started a YouTube channel recently where all the recordings of the webinars go. So if you miss out on any webinar or you have to leave for any reason at all, you can always watch these webinars again on demand on our YouTube channel. Our next webinar is about life as an international medical student, which will also be hosted by Joanne, and it will be sometime in September. So you become a member today so that you don't miss out on it. All of this information can be found on our Instagram, and if you would like to sign up for these webinars, then become a member of our society and you will receive emails with the link to register for these webinars. Sometime during the webinar, I will be posting the link to become a member and our Instagram handle so that you are up to date with all the events that are happening in our. Now, enough from me. I will be passing it on to Joanne. Remember that during the webinar, if you have any questions at all, just pop in into the Q&A section and Joanne will be answering them all at the end. Thank you, and over to you, Joanne.
Hi everyone. So like Mihira said, I'm Joanne. I'm a third year medical student at the University of Nottingham. And today I'm going to be giving you guys advice about how to pick your medical schools. So when you've reached the stage that you've done your UK CAT, you've written your personal statement and you've gotten your GCSE or IGCSE grades and you've gotten your predicted A-level grades, usually at that time is around September or early October, you have to choose which 4 medical schools you want to apply to. So you need to be really strategic about this because most universities in the UK only offer about 15 to 30 places for international students. So it is extremely competitive. And usually applying to medicine is about 10 times harder than it is to apply for any other course. So where do you start? So the way I did it and the way I would recommend all of you guys do it is to analyze all the requirements that universities ask for and what you have. So what these requirements usually are your UK CAT scores, your GCSE grades and your A-level grades, your predicted grades. And so the universities score these requirements and with that, they allow you to go onto the interview stage if you meet their minimum scores. So each university looks at these components differently. Some universities will look at them equally. So they'll score it in like 33%, 33%, 33% for each of the requirements. But some universities weigh other things more heavily than others. So if you've gotten a really good UK CAT score, you might consider applying to a university that weighs UK CAT as about 60% of their interview requirement. Whereas if your UCAT score isn't that good, you want to look at universities that maybe value GCSE grades and predicted grades if that's what you've done really well in. I'll just put a link in the chat now for this website that I used when I was applying. And this website really well shows how, actually, I don't know if I can put it in the chat. I can. I'll just send it to Mihira and I'll put it there. So basically this website allows you to see what each university requires, and they also link each university's website so you can go and see exactly what they need for their entry. So what I did, because when I applied, I had relatively good UK CAT scores, relatively good predicted grades, and good GCSE scores, but they were all pretty above average, but not outstanding. So I knew that I didn't want to apply to a university that might look at UK CAT more, look at grades more. I wanted to look at applying to universities that looked at everything equally. So a disadvantage that I faced, and many of you, especially if you're from Dubai or from international schools, might face the fact that when we do IGCSEs, we usually do fewer subjects. So in many schools, they only offer like 7 or 8 subjects for you to do at IGCSE level. So this poses a disadvantage because a lot of universities will directly ask you for your top 9 or top 10 GCSE subjects. And the reason that they do this is because in the UK, most schools do 10 GCSEs or even 12 GCSEs. And oftentimes students get 10 A stars, 12 A stars. And the reason for this is because GCSEs tend to be a lot easier than IGCSEs. But when universities look at it, they weigh IGCSEs and GCSEs equally. So as international students who have only done 8 IGCSEs, were immediately disadvantaged. So what you need to do is really focus on choosing universities that only ask for, say, top 6, top 7, or top 8 GCSE subjects, because that doesn't put you at a disadvantage compared to other international students who may have done more subjects or who've done GCSE subjects. So the reason I really want you to be careful about this is because I made a mistake here. I applied to Cardiff University that asked for 9 GCSE subjects, and I thought, well, it'll be fine. It's just one less subject. Why would I be? I don't think I would be that disadvantaged by it. But I was immediately rejected from Cardiff. And I understood later it's because each subject is given a score. So if you get an A star, say you'll get 3 points. If you get an A, you'll get 2 points. And because I didn't have that 9 subjects, I would have got 0 points. And when you're weighed against international students and it being as competitive as it is, if you lose those points in any area, you're immediately put into like a lower scoring category and you probably won't get in. So just be really careful about that if you do have fewer subjects like I did. So another thing that I did when I was reviewing my application and deciding about which universities that I want to pick was looking at what I'd done really well. And so like I said before, my UK CAT score was above average, but not amazing. My predicted grades were good, but a lot of people get really good predicted grades. And my GCSEs, I was disadvantaged because I only had 8 subjects. But what I did had was a good situational judgment score, and my situational judgment score was a band 1. And so I wanted to apply to universities that would credit me for my band 1. So while I'm on the topic of situational judgment, I just want to explain to you guys how universities use your situational judgment score in giving you an offer for an interview. So some universities will, well, actually not some, most of the universities will immediately disqualify you if you've scored a band 4 in your situational judgment. So it's really, really important that you work hard at your situational judgment, because you can be immediately discredited if you don't get above a band 4. So I had gotten a band 1, and because that was the top band, I knew that like I could apply to universities that really valued the situational judgment test. So for me, those universities were Hull York Medical School and the University of East Anglia. Both of those universities score the situational judgment test before your interview, and they give you points for it. So they give you, like, say, I think it was like 3 points for band 1, 2 points for band 2, and 1 point for band 3. And then HIMSS and UEA, they both also gave you extra points at the interview stage if you scored a band 1. And so I knew that going into the interview itself, I had an advantage over other students who hadn't got that. So this is like a double-edged sword. So if you've done really well on your UK CAT, definitely think about applying to these universities that will credit you for it. If you've gotten, say, a band 3 or maybe even a band 2, maybe don't apply to these universities that weigh so heavily on situational judgment, because you will be disadvantaged compared to students who have done well in that area. So maybe look to apply to universities that don't weigh it so heavily. Right. Another thing that you should consider is the way each course is taught. And each course usually follows 3 main ways of teaching. So you have traditional courses wherein either the first 2 or first 3 years you're taught within a classroom, within lectures, and you don't enter a hospital at all. And this is usually universities like Cambridge and Oxford that teach like this. There are very few universities that teach like this now. And then in your last 2 or 3 years, they'll take you into hospital and you'll be in hospital full time. Then you have something called integrated courses, and this is the way that most universities teach. And they do it by allowing you some early clinical contact where you go into hospital and you see patients, but you don't really do anything. Like they might let you like, for example, how we do it is like if we were doing a certain clinical skill like respiratory examination, they allow us to like go and listen to a patient's chest and stuff, but you're not like full on doing things like you would do in third or fourth year. But this is how integrated courses work, where they allow you to get some early clinical contact. um, so you have that clinical contact early on, but you also have your teaching. So the teaching works in two different ways. They work in case-based learning or problem-based learning, and what type of learning you'll get will differ on will depend on which university you go to. So for me in Nottingham, I get case-based learning, and so explain to you what case-based learning is. Each week follows a theme. So for example, if I'm in week one of my second year, I'm going to be learning about the kidney. And so how that works is we'll get an overarching case that follows a patient that has kidney failure. And we'll get to see all of their test results, and we'll follow their treatment through the week. So we'll learn about how to treat the kidney, so all the different medications. We'll learn about the anatomy of the kidney, and we'll go into the dissection room and dissect the kidney. And then well, for kidney week, we wouldn't do this, but say if it was a heart failure week, we'd also learn about how to listen to the heart and how to do a cardiac examination. Then sometimes, not in second year because of COVID, but when I was in first year, we would also go into the hospital and we would see cardiac patients and we would examine them. We would take a history from them. Um, and so that's how the whole week kind of ties in together. Then we also learn from lectures as opposed to problem-based learning, which I'll come to in a second. And so, yeah, so that's our learning. It's lectures and placement and clinical skills, and it's all mixed together. Um, Problem-based learning is similar to case-based learning, that it also follows an overarching case per week, but the way that you learn is not by lectures, and it's more group learning. So how it works that you'll have like a group of like 6 to 8 people. Again, it'll depend on which university you're in, and it's led by a tutor, and you have your case, and you'll have to like do your own research and find out things together. So you'll have to like split what you're going to research within your group, and then find out answers to the case and learn things yourself. So it very much depends on how your group works together and how you work with your teammates and stuff. So it's really important to like think about yourself. What would I prefer? Do I prefer to like work within lectures and just be given all the information without me having to do the work? Or would you prefer problem-based learning where you have to go out there and work with your teammates and do the work yourself? Um, when I was applying, I was really intrigued by the idea of problem-based learning because I liked like that it was not kind of lecture based and like how you would do it in school where they give you all the information. And I liked the challenge of problem-based learning where you would sit with a group and talk to people. When I went for one of my interviews, my interview at Hull York, they had this station where they kind of allowed you to experience what problem-based learning was. And you sat around a table and you just discussed with people like the way you would do it when you would join university. And I actually found that I did not like it at all. And the reason being is because when I experienced it, I just found that it wasn't for me. I didn't really like the fact that a lot of what you do in problem-based learning depends on how your teammates are and about how much effort your teammates put in, and how you work with them. Particularly in my experience, there was a girl in my group who would keep talking over everyone else, and I felt like I didn't get a chance to speak because she was talking all the time. And that's an issue that you might face in your problem-based learning, that if you don't really like your group, then you might struggle, and or if you're an introverted person, you might really struggle. But definitely, I think if you're someone that really hates sitting in lectures and listening to lecturers speak, or if you're a very extroverted person and you really like group work, then problem-based learning is definitely for you. It's very different, and I think very much more interactive than case-based learning. For me, I like case-based learning a lot more because I like the fact that we get spoon-fed all the information, and everything that we need to know is given to us by our lecturers. We don't really have to go out and do much work ourselves. That's just, I mean, maybe I'm lazy, that's why I like it. But like for me, case-based learning really fits. But you really have to figure it out, like try and think to yourself you'd prefer. Maybe ask some people who are in university who are doing case-based learning and problem-based learning, and see which one you think you prefer. Finally, another type of course that's there is intercalated courses. Not that many universities do intercalated courses. So basically what that means is the university allows you to do a dual degree. So you get your medicine degree, but you also get like a bachelor's of science. So in University of Nottingham, I'm doing an intercalated course. So that means that when I graduate, I'm going to get a biomedical science degree and a degree in medicine. So I get my biomedical science degree at the end of my third year. So next year I will get my first degree. But Nottingham is unique in that we get 2 degrees within 5 years. Most universities will make you take a year out, an extra year to get your second degree. I know Edinburgh does this, so they do this in 6 years. An extra year is taken for you to do a research project, submit your research project, and get a second degree. But I would really like, if you are going to be applying to a university that does allow you to do an intercalated course, consider whether that's something you want to do. Is research something you want to do? When I applied, I didn't really think that research was something that I wanted to do. And I really like Nottingham, and that's why I chose it. I didn't really choose it for the fact that I could get a second degree. But now that I'm at the stage where I'm about to start my research project, so we have to do a dissertation, which is a 10,000 word essay on a research project. I'm really excited by it because research is such a field in the UK, and universities are constantly finding things out. Like in Oxford, they found the coronavirus vaccine and stuff. So when you get to medical school, you realize that being a doctor is not necessarily being in hospitals. There's a lot of doctors who go on to become researchers and find cures for things. And it's a really exciting field. Like I said before, I never really thought that I was interested in research, but now that I'm about to start my dissertation, I'm doing my dissertation on coronavirus, and it's a really innovative thing, and I'm really excited to be able to do it. And it does open my mind to the fact that maybe initially I'd want to work in the hospital, maybe later in life I might want to go into research, and I have this extra degree that will help me with that. Cool. So once you consider what what type of course you want to do, you really should consider how you're going to fund your education. I spoke to a lot of international student friends who are in medical school now, and a lot of what everyone was saying was the fact that when we were applying to university, we didn't really look at how much each course cost. And I think it's really important to do that. One of my friends, she got into the University of Glasgow. She interviewed there and she got an offer there. And the University of Glasgow is an excellent university. It's very highly ranked. It's a really established university. And she was really excited about it. And then she looked at the fees and she was like, there's no way my parents will be able to afford that. Scottish universities are 6 years, so it's an extra year she had to pay for, and it was like way more expensive than what we would be paying in Nottingham. So I think it's really important that before you apply, you sit down with your family and you write down how much you think the cost of the course is going to be, so you really find out whether you would be able to afford it. And funding is a huge problem that international students have. I know that this year in our university, there was a student whose family was impacted by COVID, and she wasn't able to pay the tuition fees, and she had to start a GoFundMe campaign to be able to pay her tuition. So it is really expensive. So really make sure that you know exactly how much you're going to be paying. A lot of universities also increase their fees every year. And it's like a 3% or 5% increase. So the fees that you see when you start the course might not be the fees that you end up paying, because they tend to increase each year. So really make sure that you know what you're getting into before you apply. Yeah, and just as a rule of thumb, universities like Cambridge and Oxford, universities in London, and universities in Scotland tend to be a lot more expensive. Scotland does 6-year degrees, so it's an extra year, and that's why they tend to be more expensive. Another thing I want to touch on is looking at university rankings. I feel like it's this tendency for us to always, especially as medical students, as high achieving students, we all want to look at rankings. We want to get into the highest ranked university. First thing I want to say is because you're applying for medicine, it is incredibly competitive. Applying for medicine itself and being able to get into a medical school is like getting into an extremely high ranked university in any other subject. The other thing I want to say is that rankings can be extremely deceptive, because a lot of the time, these websites that publish these rankings, they can get paid to put universities higher up on their list than other universities that don't pay them. This is why sometimes if you look at a website, you'll see like universities like Oxford and Cambridge that are the most established, most well-known medical schools in the world are lower ranked than some of these universities that you've never heard of before. They'll be like sixth or seventh or something in comparison. Um, and that's because universities like Cambridge and Oxford wouldn't really care about their rank. Everybody knows they're good. And sometimes you'll have these things like, or students say this and stuff. I've been at university for 2 years and no survey company has ever, we've never been emailed to us, like fill out a survey. So it does make me wonder where they get their data from for like student reviews and stuff. So I really feel like ranks aren't a very good guide of whether a university is good enough. I think it's really important to remember that, especially with medicine, all universities have to meet a set standard that's set by the GMC, and that's an extremely high standard. So, whatever university you end up going to, it's going to be a good university and you're going to come out with a good education. So, really focus on picking a university that's in a good location that you feel like you'd like, and a university that's whose learning style you feel like you'd adapt with, and one that your family can afford. Um, so then when you're making your final choices, something that I did was I did something where I was like picking two universities that were like my reach schools, so things that two universities where I thought it might be kind of difficult for me to get in, but I'm gonna apply anyways, and I have two backups. So my two reach schools were Nottingham and Cardiff, and my two safety schools were HIMSS, Hollyoak Medical School, and the University of East Anglia. Um, and the reason that I did it like this was because really big name schools, schools that you've heard a lot about, so like any Russell Group University, Oxford, Cambridge, universities in London, they're really popular and everybody's going to be applying to them. I would really recommend to at least apply to one university that people haven't really heard about, because it's less likely that people will be applying there and more likely that you'll get a place. So for me, that was Hollyoak Medical School. When I was going to apply, my counselor said, I've never heard of anyone applying to this university before. And I said, that's why I'm applying there, because I feel like I'll have more of a chance of getting in there. And I did get in there. So yeah, there are quite a few universities like that now, that are newer, and not say that they will not give you a good education. They absolutely will, because they have to meet that standard. And so I would really recommend applying to at least one of them to be like your backup. um, I know like the University of Lincoln, for example, they're a partner school from the University of Nottingham, and they have the exact same course that we do at Nottingham, but it's so much easier to get into Lincoln than it is to get into Nottingham. So universities like that, I would really recommend picking as backups. So yeah, that's really all I have to say. And yeah, again, like I said, it really does not matter what medical school you go to. Just focus on getting a place, getting those interviews, getting as many interviews as possible, so you have more chance of getting past the interview stage and getting your final offer. So yeah, thank you.
That was amazing. I think we can move on to the Q&A.
Yeah, sure, I will. Okay, the first one is, where all did you apply? Which one did you have the best experience in? Okay, so I applied to the University of Nottingham, Hollyoak Medical School, the University of East Anglia, and Cardiff University. Cardiff University was the only one that I got rejected from, and that was the reason that I said earlier. The other three I got interviews, and then I got three offers from there. Um, which one did I have the best experience in? So obviously, because I picked Nottingham, that was the best experience. But like if you're talking about interview experiences, Hollyoak Medical School had a very like complicated, well, I wouldn't say complicated, but it was a very interesting interview process. Um, yeah, it was like I said, they had that PBL station where they allowed you to do like a mock PBL session. And their questions were so deep. Um, and yeah, but it was very thought provoking and stuff. But I just felt like the area, York, just wasn't for me. It was a very countryside kind of dead area, and I was like, no, I want a more bustling place. So yeah. Do rankings matter? So, like I said before, I really don't think they matter. I think rankings are a lie. There are some universities that I've literally seen, like, they were at the top of the rankings when I applied, but like now they're at the bottom. And it's like, how does it change so fast? And I honestly think it's because these websites will take money from universities to put them higher up and stuff. So really, they don't matter, particularly for medicine. How do you see which type of course a university has? Yeah, so if you go onto the website, they'll tell you like how do we teach, and so it'll be like, well, we teach case-based learning with early clinical contact, or they'll say we teach problem-based learning. So it's all on their websites. Does intercalation give extra points? So intercalation used to give extra points when you're applying for your Foundation 1 jobs, but they changed that rule. So it doesn't give any points for your medical career. But as international students, and when you apply for your visa, having an extra degree gives you an extra point. I don't know how many extra points it gives you, but it does give you extra points. And then, just like I said before, if you consider going into research, maybe even directly after school, if you find that like clinical medicine is not for you, it definitely helps. And maybe later in life, if you want to go into research, an extra degree does help. How many years is study for MBBS? It's 5 years in most universities in England, but in Scotland it's 6 years. I think it's 5 years in Wales, but again, if you intercalate, it's going to be an extra year in some universities. Yeah.
There's a question in the chat.
Well, let me check. Um, uh, demerit because you're a CBSC student. Um, I do think it does put you at a disadvantage if you're a CBSE student, because the way that they convert the CBSE grades to points in the British system, I don't think they value it as much as the British curriculum grades. The reason being, of all the international students I know at university, all of them came from British curriculum. So I do feel like it does make it a lot harder when you come from CBSE. I don't think it's impossible, but it does make it harder. Um, I think if you're in year 11 and you have the opportunity to switch to a sixth form that's a British curriculum, I would definitely recommend doing that because it does make it harder. Um, Also, like adapting from the Indian system of learning to coming to university and studying in a very British way that we do in medical school, it does make it harder. So yeah, British students that come from British universities British schools, sorry, are a lot better prepared to start medical school. But yeah, other than that, like you'd have to contact the universities and see how they value CBSE grades as like in their ranking system. Apart from bio, what is the subject that universities evaluate? Bio and chemistry, that's what most universities will ask for. They don't ask for anything else other than those two. Any other questions?
We've answered all in the Q&A and the chat. Oh, there's one more in the Q&A.
Does having more than 3 A levels give an advantage? No, it does not, because they score only 3 A levels. So no, does not. Yeah, I don't think Cambridge or Oxford gives advantage to 4 either. Everybody says 3, so yeah. Yeah. Is there any other questions? Will I be able to do MBBS within 4 years? No, you can't. You can't fast track in the UK system. The only way you can do it in 4 years is if you've done an undergraduate degree before, and so graduate entry medicine is 4 years, but undergraduate medicine is 5 years everywhere. So yeah.
I had a question.
Oh yeah.
So whatever university you choose right now, is it going to impact where you get a job in the future, or like your
Not
foundation years?
necessarily. Because what really matters is how you do in medical school, your grades in medical school. So if, say, you go to Cambridge, but you rank at the bottom, which very often can happen because of how competitive universities like Cambridge are, it's going to disadvantage you as opposed to, like, say, going to Lincoln and ranking first. So yeah, it's important to consider that.
So it's your grades and not the university you go
Yeah,
to.
yeah. Anyone else?
I think we are done with the questions. Are there any more questions, everyone? I think we'll wrap it up then. 'Cause- oh no, that is.
Oh, is there one? Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Any tips for situational judgment? Um, I feel like most of the situational judgment follows a similar pattern of the patient comes first. Whatever you do, like in every question, it's like if anything harms the patient or puts the patient in danger or would hurt the patient in any way, um, you don't want to be doing that. So whenever you're answering questions, just think about, am I putting the patient first? And then you should be fine. But yeah, those like specific things, I feel like you can easily find it online. But just keep it that in your head when you're answering questions that if I'm going to be affecting the patient anyway, I don't care what, like, it's okay to break rules if you're putting the patient first. So yeah, that's all.
Any more questions, everyone? Mm. All right, I don't think there are any more.
Yeah, I don't think
So
there is.
we'll wrap it up. If there are any more questions, you can DM us on Instagram or email us, and we'll be happy to pass it on to Joanne. And if she's free, she'll answer it and send it back to you.
Obviously, it's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else you want to add before I end the session, Joanne?
Just good luck to all of you.
Good luck. Yeah, I think the session was extremely helpful, and the disadvantages, no one would actually look into it. And the IGCSE thing, I think that was very insightful. So thank you so much, everyone. I would just like to remind everyone that you can revisit this webinar on our Virtual Med Society's YouTube channel if you missed out on anything. So just make sure you check that in within 24 to 48 hours. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for being an amazing audience. Thank you so much, Joanne, for your time and this extremely informative session.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.